You can look it up, where he goes into witness protection and he has to kind of like fake his own death. I haven't seen or know too much about that storyline. If that's where we're going with this, dope. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to The Critics. I am your host, Isaac Joel, and today we're going to be breaking down the first two episodes of Daredevil Born Again. It has finally released on Disney+. We have all been quietly and anticipating this series to kind of make its comeback after 7 long years without these characters, without these actors in the Marvel universe. I am unabashedly a huge fan of the original Netflix series. I watched it literally as the show was coming out. I kept up with Defenders. I watched Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, everything that everybody just didn't really love and appreciate at that time. I was hung-go over it. I wanted Marvel to kind of take that dark direction with their projects. I am a huge Zack Snyder DC fan. You know, shoot me in the head, say whatever you want about me, but I love dark, gritty heroes. And I love the vibrancy of other heroes as well. But I love in cinema, you know, what the Russo brothers did with Captain America, how they take a character like that is honestly not meant to work on the big screen, and they make it work. They narratively repurpose the character to fit modern times, and they're not relying on the comic book adaptation of Captain America. They're seeing, okay, what can we do with the character and kind of revamp it? That's what they're doing with Daredevil. That's what they're doing with this character. And there was a point in time when they were thinking about rebooting him and kind of putting a different actor in the costume and another Kingpin coming into the MCU once they kind of merged ships and was like, you know what, we don't want to do the Netflix stuff anymore. We want to put stuff on Disney+. And putting Daredevil on Disney+ was honestly a suicide mission, I think, for Marvel. Their shows up until this point haven't really been that good. Some arguably are good. You know, some people are huge fans of stuff like Agatha All Along or whatever the hell. I don't really like some of the shows. I'm a fan of some other ones, but even like going back and rewatching them and like seeing like, oh, do they still hold up? Like, maybe, not really. You know, why can't they just be movies? Why can't they just be films? I think Daredevil is beyond TV series at this point, honestly, and I feel like they're only doing this show to kind of test and see like, oh, is the character good enough to sustain itself and make its way over to the Avengers hopefully someday. And I don't really know what the main goal with Daredevil at this point is. All I know is he has just leveled up and is way beyond TV shows and cameos and supporting roles. Like, dude, Charlie Cox is arguably the best actor right now in the Marvel universe. He's the only one bringing a huge amount of range to his performance and layers and complexity, and I really admire that about Matt Murdock. I love having this conversation about the man without fear, about the devil of Hell's Kitchen, and how he kind of, his morals and his beliefs, he's arguably, you know, compared to like Batman, you know, in the Marvel universe. I don't really want to take that route with him. I feel like he has completely evolved into his own character. There's a religious aspect to Daredevil, and maybe that's what I find so fascinating about him as a character, is that he is a man of faith, and it is very ironic that he is dressing up at night as the devil and beating up criminals. I just find the hypocrisy and the irony and all of that just so effing fascinating. So of course I'm excited that he's back into the Marvel universe, and we're going to see him hopefully merge with other characters. I want to get into episode 1. I want to get into episode 2. The things that worked for me, the things that haven't. I've had some time to kind of marinate and think about the show, and man, do I have a lot of thoughts on it, and I just don't even know where to begin. The first 15 minutes is either the best 15 minutes in a Marvel content media forum, or the worst 15 minutes. Like, take it for whatever you want. And honestly, even online, there's a lot of people that are kind of like 50-50 about Daredevil and where they land on it. A lot of people just don't like the fight choreography. A lot of people don't like the cinematography, the writing, whatever have you. A lot of people are kind of taking sides on it. I'm stuck in the middle right now. I haven't seen the entire series, and there's a lot of critics out there that have already seen the entire show, and they know exactly how it ends and how it builds up to a second season and yada yada. I have no idea what the map and what the goal is for the character right now, so I am on the fence, and this is going to be completely spoilers. So if you haven't seen the show, just honestly, just don't even watch this, don't even listen to this. I feel like killing Foggy Nelson was just one of the worst decisions ever in the opening. Before the intro even hit, man, we got to spend zero time with him back as a character. We didn't really get to live in that chemistry between him and Charlie Cox and Deborah Ann, who plays Karen Page, and we didn't get to live in that dynamic, in that bubble for a long period of time. It just was kind of taken away from us, man, so quickly and abruptly. And if you have followed the entire series and Daredevil's journey from the shows, the movies, the cartoon, all that stuff, if you followed all of that stuff, then this is emotional and impactful to you. If you have not seen any of that and you're new to Daredevil and you're watching Born Again as like your first kind of like outing, you're like, oh, I'm never gonna watch the Netflix shows, you don't care at all what happens to this guy because you just met him a minute ago and now he's shot, and it means absolutely nothing to you as an audience. And I'm not even saying like, okay, you got to kill him off at the end of the season. Like, no, if you got to kill the character off, fine, that's totally fine. I'm not even going to argue that, because I see from a narrative standpoint that a sacrifice has to be made in order to push your hero into their journey and past their boundaries. I wish they had just saved it for the end of the episode. I would have been totally fine with that. I would have had that entire episode living with Nelson and seeing kind of where he's at with his new life and these past 7 years. But doing it in the first 15 minutes before the intro and title cards even started hitting, I was already just like an emotional wreck. And pretty much for the rest of the show, I was watching it and paying attention, of course, but I was like mentally checked out. I just couldn't believe what the F just happened and unfolded in front of me. And it was heartbreaking, man. It was heartbreaking. I have seen conspiracies and online theories that, you know, he faked his death. You know, is that true? I don't really know. You know, there's comics and storylines, I believe, called like The Secret Life of Franklin Nelson, something like that. You can look it up, where he goes into witness protection and he has to kind of like fake his own death. I haven't seen or know too much about that storyline. If that's where we're going with this, dope. Okay, fine. I think I could get behind that, man. But and we've also heard, you know, confirmations that the actor is already going to be coming back for season 2. So, you know, it makes sense to me. You know, maybe it's just flashbacks. Maybe he's not really back. You know, no one in the Marvel universe has ever truly gone. You know, look what happened to Loki. You know, he literally got his own spin-off show after we felt his death. So I'm getting kind of sick of Marvel faking out deaths, to be completely honest with you. They did this with Maria Hill in Secret Invasion, and a lot of people didn't like that. A lot of these like first episodes, like the opening, is them killing off a main character, someone that we have known and lived with for a very long period of time, and they kind of just like take them away from us. Like it doesn't really matter, like nothing, like it was nothing. And to me, that's really bold as writers. It just feels like they don't really care necessarily about these characters the way that us fans do, because their death is just so abrupt and not earned. If you have to kill a character off, that makes sense, but it's just not earned. And that's where I'm at right now with Franklin Nelson. I feel like it just was not earned at all. But hey, man, we'll see what happens at the end of the series, and my thoughts will probably completely change by the time I've seen the entire show. Let's dive a little bit more into it. I want to talk about Bullseye. Bullseye is just one of the best insane psychopath murderers I have ever seen in like television. I truly wish he was in Thunderbolts. I think his character is probably way more insane than any of those guys in that movie, and I haven't even seen Thunderbolts, but I could tell you right now, Bullseye would just be the freaking lead of that team, man. He would be going insane, dude. I love the actor that plays Poindexter Dex. I really think that he just is so brutal, man. He's like a Terminator in that opening scene, and I've already talked about how I just don't like the decision that they made, but in terms of Bullseye and how he's just this machine that just won't stop and is just kind of coming after his target, man. That was just incredible. The motivations there completely made sense, dude. It was a great way to inject us back into the show. It was a great way to set up high stakes for what was going to come next, man. And we have so many questions and feelings about this. And I'll be honest, man, they did a good job. The first episode was really solid, despite, you know, some wonky camera techniques and fight choreography and CGI. I know people are gonna have a huge discourse over that forever, but listen, dude, seeing Daredevil jumping rooftops and using his cane to like rope around like Spider-Man and do parkour, I know it wasn't like super intense and like awesome compared to like, you know, the Netflix shows where you actually see the actor, you know, flipping around rooftops and stuff. I love that stuff. I love parkour stuff. It's so cool, very James Bond-esque. But I feel like with this show, you know, the CGI and the animation, you know, it wasn't quite there yet, but it's getting there. It is going to get there. I think this is a really good, solid practice run for if Daredevil does join the big screen for the Avengers. Like, I need to see him swinging around, man. Honestly, it would have just made sense putting him in Spider-Man 4. That's just my theory. I think that would have been awesome, seeing him in the app movie if that time comes. But hey, this is where we're at right now. Wilson Fisk, dude, how does a guy like that, a criminal with so much criminal history, become mayor of New York? Now listen, I'm not gonna sit here and get into politics or even like talk about any of that, man. I really don't even want to dive too much into that stuff. I just don't understand how a guy like Fisk can get away with so much, man, and be back on top. But that is what's interesting about the character, is that he always finds a way to get back on top. Why? Because he's the fucking kingpin, dude. He can do anything. He could be anywhere. He can control anyone. He can get anything he wants. That is what's so cool about that level of like villainry, man. Like, I'm a huge fan of Tony Soprano. If you guys have ever seen The Sopranos on HBO, I know that's like night and day difference and completely different, but in terms of like just like cruel villains, man, Tony Soprano, the Penguin, dude, Kingpin, like these are the guys. You know, I'll even throw Walter White in that mix. You know, the villains of our generation, the Lex Luthor types that aren't just, you know, physical villains, but are actual psychological manipulative villains. And I really like that about Kingpin. I love how Kingpin kind of plays this long end game, dude. I have no idea what his intentions and motivations are right now. It's always just about control with him. He just wants to control everything and be on top, man. So we'll see where that journey is going. It seems like there's some tension between him, his wife. I don't know if she's entirely believing that he's put his past behind him. Those therapy scenes between him and his wife remind me again of The Sopranos, those moments where like they have to now sit down and talk. And that's where the show, I think, is at its absolute best, man. And that might sound boring to some of you, but when characters are just sitting down and talking about their feelings, their morals, their principles, where they cross the line, that is when the dialogue in the show is just at its peak. Versus the fights and the choreography, that stuff honestly at this point is kind of secondary. And I'll tell you right now the issue with the fighting in Daredevil. It's not that it looks bad. It's not that it's shot bad. It's that it's edited horribly. I don't know why they've inserted like 5 different cuts and angles of a fight scene that's happening like in real time. You just have no sense of what's happening, man. It kind of reminds me of like those awful cuts from like the Taken movies where like Liam Neeson's character is like flipping over the fence and it's like 8, 10, 12 different cuts of this guy just jumping a fence. Like, it's completely unnecessary, man. And I think the fighting, the brutality, the violence is at its best when you just show it. Again, I hate to kind of compare and contrast, but you go back and you watch the original Netflix series, those long takes, the wide shots of, you know, and I'm not even talking about the wonders. I'm just talking about the long takes. Sometimes they'll do takes where it just goes on as long as they can, but then there's a cut, you know, after maybe, you know, a minute of them fighting. That's a long time to be fighting on camera with 0 cutting, dude. It's just so impressive in that forum. But with this, there's a lot of cuts going on outside of that one take. White Tiger is kind of a new character brought into this world. The actor that portrays him, if you see the opening of the second episode, they do an in loving memory of the actor, and it's really heartwarming and beautiful, dude, and respectful. Unfortunately, the actor passed away. I believe it was cancer related, and he didn't get to see, I don't think, you know, the finished product and where the show is at now, and I don't think we'll be able to see him back, man. I am curious to see how they're going to, I guess, conclude that character, because you don't want to leave him open-ended, you know, at this point. And it's very heartbreaking, but I think what he's doing and what Tiger is doing in the show is really good. I have no complaints about that at all. I loved the subway scene when he goes down and starts fighting those cops and accidentally kills one of them, completely accidental. You know, he was just defending the guy that wasn't able to defend himself, and now he's like locked in this like cop killing case, and Matt Murdock takes that upon himself to investigate, because he believes him. He has this ability with his hearing where he knows people are telling the truth or lying or not, you know, and so he knows that he's telling him the truth when he says that he did not kill, you know, him on purpose, or, you know, these guys were beating him up, you know, stuff like that. You know, these are corrupted cops that we're talking about, and they have the Punisher logo on them, and so there's kind of a bit of a question mark there. I think the cops look at Punisher as kind of like a symbol, man, something that the police wish that they could do and be to criminals, but that's kind of the hypocrisy. I think they're not understanding that is why the Punisher exists. He does the things that the cops are not supposed to and not allowed to be doing to people, man. That's why he works outside of the law, you know. But these cops are taking things into their own hands, man, and they're getting real dirty, and they're gonna pay the consequence, man. They really, really are. We haven't gotten to the Punisher yet. He's not introduced into the show. We haven't gotten to John Berthold. That I am very, very excited about. I want to see how those two characters kind of explode on screen with this tension, man. Now that Matt kind of knows that the Punisher has had an influence on society, man, where is he at right now? How is he going to come into the fold of things? This show does suffer from a lot of rewrites and writer strikes and stuff like that, and just being delayed one after another. I think they shot the show at one point, did test screenings, it failed, and they went back and reshot like a bunch of new stuff. And so now it's like a whole new thing. And Marvel has been known to do this. We've seen this with Brave New World, and it did not turn out well at all for that movie. I did not love it. If I had to rate it, that'd be like 2 out of 10, man. But Daredevil has a chance. It has a legitimate fighting chance because of John Bernthal, because of Vincent D'Onofrio, because of Charlie Cox, because of these iconic, legendary cast that you have in a show like this, man. You got really talented writers, you got really talented directors, the people that have been involved with Moon Knight and Loki, and so I have faith in this show. I have what Matt Murdock has, faith in the writers, in the series, and I'm not going to judge it harshly yet. I'm not going to critique this entirely yet, man. I have to see the long end game, and so by the end of the show, I'll let you guys know where I'm at with it. I'm going to review every episode every week. These are my thoughts as of right now. I loved episode 1. I think it's a really strong entryway to Daredevil back into the Marvel world. I love the soundtrack, I love the sound design, I love the lighting, I love Charlie Cox, man. He's the best, dude. Seriously, I'm just going to keep saying that over and over. If you need a reason to watch the show, it's him, because no matter who he's acting opposite side of, he's just completely dominating the moment, the scene. Episode 2 is also really strong right now. I don't have a ton of criticism for these 2 episodes besides, Foggy Nelson dying, besides, the wonky CGI at times. Other than that, man, it just feels like we're back into the swing of things, and I'm really happy to finally see Daredevil as a character realized by Marvel, by Kevin Feige, by this creative team, and I think there's a lot of interesting things to come in the show. So if you need a reason to go check it out right now. I highly encourage it. Thank you so much for watching and listening to this review. Let me know in the comments below what you think about Daredevil Born Again. Do you hate this show? Do you think it's just the worst thing in the world? Or are you a believer? Do you have faith that we're going somewhere? We're going to be taken on a journey that's going to impact us forever. And I'm just so grateful, honestly, that these characters are back on screen, and I love what they're doing with it. The cinematic approach to it is completely different than the Netflix series. You can compare the two on their own, and we have a lot more to look forward to. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel below. As always, I have been your host, Isaac Joel. I'll catch you next time.